Hi everybody, it's Christine from My Soda Town Journals, and today I'm going to do a tutorial on this duplex journal that I made. This is one that I was going to prepare halfway, basically just get it cut and inked, and I ended up not stopping, so I will show you that one. But this is what we're going to be making. We're just going to be using different paper, and I'm going to go ahead and take off all of my uh, ephemera and clips and everything so you can see what we're starting with, because we're just going to do the base in this video because it's a lot. Obviously I'm not going to take the pages out, and I'll leave those tags in there. That's fine. I just wanted to get some of this stuff out of here so we can see what we're doing. Okay, so this is the basic journal. You've got the flip down, then you've got it opens up this way, then you close that and it opens up this way, and you've got the journal pages in here. This is a large pocket. The whole thing is the pocket. Then you close it that way, open it this way, and you've got the other journal part. I put a pocket on here from some coffee dyed file folder that I had as a scrap. And then I did the same thing with another scrap over here to make this tuck. So that's what we're going to be making today. And I've got this one that, like I say, I started working on, and I went too far. So this one doesn't have any pages or anything in it. So this flips down. This opens up this way. And in here is where you would put some journal pages if you wanted. Or is it? Let me get this. No. So this flips down. This flips open. You can put pages wherever you want to, but I didn't put pages in here. This is just where I had things clipped. And then this opens. You've got your big pocket over here, and this is where I put a signature, and then I close it, open it this way, and I put this pocket on here, and this is just a couple cutouts that came with this paper, and then I put a signature in here, and then you close it, and this is the back of the journal, and this is one huge pocket as well. And I will, let me show you which paper I used on this. I've got it right over here. I used Cottage Flowers Recollections. I think I got this. I think Recollections is Michael's, and it's just single-sided 12 by 12. But that's the paper pack that I used to make this. So, okay, and let me show you the paper pack I used to make the other one. This one, I didn't show it in the last video that I made for this, but I think I have the paper pack here that I used. You know what? Do I? Yes, here it is. This one is French Prep by Colorbach, and I got this at Walmart, or I should say my son picked it up for me. And this one is just single-sided, and it's not cardstock, it's just paper, which is actually perfect for this type of thing because the file folder is really thick cardstock. So this, I used this paper for. And the one that we're going to make today, get all this out of the way and try to keep it together. We'll see how well that goes. What I'm using today is good grief. I'm sorry. I had this all organized and together, and it's instantly became unorganized. Here we go. When I first started junk journaling, I bought all the papers. All the papers. So, and then I never used them because I realized that they're expensive, and I didn't want to use them because I didn't want to use them. I wanted to save them for something special. Well, everything I make is special, and everything that you make is special. So we need to use the good stuff that we buy. That's the whole point. But it's a struggle. And then I got into printables, and I found so many more different varieties of papers, uh, mainly on Etsy. Um, Obviously, you can't get the 12 by 12 unless you have some massive printer, which I don't. But most projects I do, including this one, you can use a 8.5 by 11. You don't have to have 12 by 12. So I do a lot of printing, and I think I just hit the camera. Sorry about that. I do a lot of printing, but since I have a huge stack of these papers, I thought I'd pull them out and just start using them. So this one is die cuts with a view. It's vintage, and I know Joanne sells DCWV. I'm not really sure where I got this, to be honest. I don't know if it's still in print. I don't know what's going on with it. But like I say, I got it over a year ago. So this is what I'm going to be using today to make this journal. And I just picked out 5 sheets because basically with the 12 by 12, I'm going to be cutting them in half. And I need 10. I have 10 panels in total in the journal. So I figure if I cut each of these in half, then I'll have 10 because I've got 5 sheets. So you can either get 5 sheets of 12 by 12, or I guess 10 sheets of 8.5 by 11. I'm not sure. Let me measure this, but I'm not sure if 6 by 8 would work. If they're going to be big enough, let me just grab this real quick and I'll measure it. Let's see, let me find the biggest part, which is this. This is 9 1/4 by almost 5 3/4. So yeah, if you had, no, 6 by 8 wouldn't work. You can also stamp and ink on these. You can paint. You can collage. You can use your scraps. Like one of the papers I'm going to be using today is collage. So if you didn't have a big enough piece of paper, but you had a bunch of scraps, you could literally collage right on this file folder. So, okay, enough yakking about what you could do and what I did do. Let's start with something that we're going to do. So let me get this paper out of the way. You're going to need 2 file folders. I have 2 extra in case I mess up. Put them off to the side. Now, on your file folders, the tabs can be wherever you want. Like I have both of my file folders, the tabs are on the left. It's just when you fold it, that's going to determine what your tabs are going to look like at the top. Now, I recommend using one that's on the right and one that's on the left. But I did use one that was in the middle before, and it works. It just, the tabs look different. So since both of these are on the left, and that's all I don't have any more with the right. So I'm just going to turn this one inside out. And look at there. Now I've got one of each. And let me get my, I don't know what I did with my big bone folder. It's over here in this mess somewhere. I'm just going to use this little one. It works just fine. So there you go. Now I've got one on each side. So that's all you have to do. If you want it on the other side, then you've got it exactly the same. But I want it. Okay. So we've got that. Now, you need one, whichever one you want to fold it in half. But I want my tabs when I fold it, I want them to be, I don't know if you can see that, where the tabs are like this and not in the back. So you can do it however you want. So I'm actually going to use, so I'm going to start with the one that's the tab that's on the right, and I'm going to fold it so the tabs are over here. And you just line it up. And fold it, and then get your bone folder and really crease down. Really make sure you've got it lined up before you do the bone folding. In case you're off a little bit, you can fix it. And then I do it on this side too, because the file folder's kind of thick. I mean, not too thick, but you want to make sure you get a good fold. And then I do it this way too, so that way there's not a whole lot of stiffness when I go to open and close the journal. And I do down here as well, because file folders are not always exactly plumb, true, square, whatever you want to call it. So by doing the bone folder down here, if there's any sort of variation or it's just a little bit off by a hair, that'll fix that. So now it opens and closes easily, and I've got my tabs over here where I want them. So we've got the one that all we did was just fold it in half. Now this one, the other folder, you're going to cut it in half. Now you can measure it, but what I like to do is just get it lined up like this, and just barely push down right there. Not even really put a crease in it. Just make a little divot in the middle. That's how you know it's your middle. And then I line it up in my trimmer and cut it down the middle. So the one with the tabs, this is gonna be my flip down, right? I've laid it on top of the main part of the journal. This is gonna go as my flip down. Okay. But I need one more panel, so I'm going to cut this in half along the factory. Now there's 3 lines here on this particular file folder. Most of them have these fold lines. It's so in case you need to expand it and make it thicker, which we don't want to do that today. Make sure you get the one on the very bottom and cut that in half as well. Okay. These are both pretty much the same. I mean, there's no tabs or anything on there. So set one over with your main journal, your flip down flap, and then you've got one of these panels. Okay. This other extra panel we're going to use to make our hinges. And I'm pretty sure you need 3 hinges for this. This is more than enough. So I make my hinges 1.5 inches. That way they're wide enough and that makes them sturdy. You don't have to use file folder. You could use cardstock. But since you already have this, why not use it? So 1.5. And I'm going to go ahead and cut 3. I can't remember if I need 2 or 3. But I'll just go ahead and cut them. There's 1. We'll cut these at 1.5. There's 2. And 1.5. There's 3. So we've got those. Now, with the hinges, I like to use my scoreboard. You don't have to. I'm just not with the whole straightness, so I'm going to put them on my scoreboard real quick. And roughly half is, let's see, 1.5, 3/4 of an inch. So half, 3/4. And just, this isn't quite long enough, but I don't need to score it all the way completely down there. That's enough for me to get a straight fold on. And let's see, one, that looks about like half. These could be close. You're not going to see them. So if it's not exactly in the middle, it's not that big of a deal. Getting it straight, though, is a big deal. So I'm done with the scoreboard. And then I'm just going to fold these over. That score helps me. And then I start in the middle. And I push it out towards that end. And push it out towards that end. Then I use my bone folder. Then I open it up and do it the other way. That way it's less stiff when I'm opening and closing it. Okay, let me do the other two. And like I say, I don't know if I need 3. I can't remember. But you can always save it, use it for another project if you want. If we end up not needing it. Or you can put as many flaps and flips in this journal as you want to. This is just where I stopped. But in the future, I may make more. Who knows? Did I already do that this way? I don't know. I'll do it again, whatever. It's all good. Okay. And I'm trying this without my overhead light today because I can't stand the glare. I've been looking for something to diffuse that light, and I haven't found it yet. But the search is on. Okay, so we've got our hinges, and we've got our panels. So, hinges, panels, over to the side. We're going to work on the main part. Now, this is our main part, and we've got the front. If you folded your tabs like mine is, the front's going to look like this. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to cover these with paper. So this is all going to be covered. You see, what can I... put something here so you can see. So this is going to be covered. But we also want to cover this part, just this part. Because this is going to be glued shut. So this is not going to open right here. This is going to be glued shut. But we want to cover this part, unless you want to leave it plain. We want to cover this part. So what I suggest is cutting the piece of paper for that before we start gluing. Because once this is glued together, then this isn't going to lift up, and it's trickier. You can still do it, but it's trickier to get the paper in there. So let me see, what do I have? I've got a scrap over here. Will this work? No. Okay. And I probably should have wrote my step downs. I'm trying my steps down. I'm trying to do things in order so that I don't have to go back and say, oh, you know what we forgot to do? I should have wrote it down. But anyway, what we're going to do first is we're going to pick our papers out, which ones we're going to use. And I've got the ones at least picked out that I'm going to use. 1, 2, 3, 4. I didn't want this one. I'm supposed to have 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. I love that. I might use that side of it. I don't like that side. That's okay. Yeah, I need one more sheet. Let me just grab one more sheet. Okay. Thought I had 5, but I guess I didn't. I don't know. That looks kind of loud. But it might be nice to offset. I don't know. That's the other thing that I found about these sheets or these papers is there's so many in here that I might not necessarily like. So I would rather just, I know I tore one of these out. A music paper one. Okay, well, I'm tearing another one out. I'll find it eventually. Okay. There, we've got 5 pieces. So now I need to decide where. Sorry about that. I hope that wasn't too loud. Where I'm going to put these. The other thing is some of these have the gold foil on the pages. This one's not too bad. I'm going to use it. It's just not my style. I prefer grungy, vintagey, non-blingy. Sometimes I'll put a little bling. So the gold foil is not my style, but I know a lot of people like it. And I'm going to go ahead and use it because I love this paper. So, okay. So if I put this on the front, I don't know if I want that on the front. And I've got music paper on the back. Okay. I tell you what, I'm going to pause for a minute and I'm going to figure out, because you don't need to see me going back and forth with this paper. I'm going to figure out where I'm going to put these papers, and then I will be back and we will continue. It'll just be like a millisecond to you, but it's going to take me a few minutes. Okay, I'm back. I've got my paper sorted. So I took my first sheet and since I'm using a 12 by 12, I just cut it in half. I'll have to trim it down some more. But what I need to do is I'm going to put this on the front, but I need to cover this up. So what I did is I cut a little bit off the top, and I'm going to flip it over because the back of this is text. So that'll work. And I'm going to use this to cover this flap right here. Wrong piece. Let me try again. I'm going to use this. This is the piece we're working on, the main piece, the whole folder that's folded in half. And I'm going to use this piece of paper to cover this right here. And I want to do that before I glue the sides because it's harder to do once you wait. So I'm going to fold this open. Then I'm going to put this paper in. Now, I like to have a little bit of edge showing around my papers. So what I want to do is line this paper up so that I have a little bit of the edge on the top and a little bit of the edge on the side. And I didn't trim this off, the hole from the paper when I took it off the pad. So let me just trim that off. Okay. So I don't have to deal with that. All right. So I want to leave it, I want to put it however far down you want your edge to show. And the same thing over here on the side. So that looks about right where I want it. So then you got to pick this up without letting this piece of paper move. Squeeze it real tight and flip it over. Okay? And you take your pencil. That does not look straight at all, though, does it? Let me. Okay, that looks good. I don't know. And then you just trace. So you trace this little piece right here. And then you trace this to get your shape. And then you just cut that out. Since I'm not using my light, it's kind of hard. Okay. And what I do when I cut on the inside of the line that I drew. Let me make this a little bit darker so maybe you can see it better. There's my line, and I'm going to draw on the inside of that line. Probably about like 1/8 of an inch. I'm going to cut on the inside. And it's not going to be exact. I'm not very good at it. And the same thing over here. Here's my line, and I'm going to cut about 1/8 of an inch on the inside of that. It's always better to cut less than to cut more, because you can always go back and cut more. Okay, so now let's get this back turned around the right way, and I'm going to slide this in here. And this is a little over too far. I need to trim this piece a little bit. So it slides over more. Still just a little bit more. And unfortunately, I mean, I'm not good with measuring things. I suppose you could try to measure this to make it easier, so you won't have to keep refitting it. But I haven't figured out how to do it. So this is the way I do it. And you just get that lined up how you want it. That looks pretty good. The reason I'm not worried about the length is because it slides down in here. You can move it up and down depending on how much of a border you want around it. Now, so we've got that piece cut, measured and cut, so we can go ahead and glue this. But before we glue it, I want to ink it. And what I suggest is you get all your pieces, including your hinges, and ink everything. Just ink all the edges. There's going to be some edges that you're not going to see, but it's too confusing to figure out which ones you're going to see, which ones you're not going to see. You're going to see most of them, so I just ink everything, and then I don't have to worry. Just do it all at once, and then you're done. Now with the hinges, I only ink the fold. So I fold it like this and just ink the fold, and I ink both sides of the fold, because that's the only thing that you're going to see. The paper is going to be covering up the rest of it. Don't ink on the edges here, because you might see a part of the edge and it's going to look weird if it's inked and nothing else is inked. So before we go any further, we're going to ink all of our pieces. So I'm going to do that, but I'll be speeding it up so you don't have to sit here and watch me ink everything. I will say on the inking, it doesn't matter how far over this way you go, it's going to be covered up with your paper. And you want to make sure that your ink is going to show. So like, for an example, I inked that, but I'm going to have my paper like this. So you're not going to see all that other ink that's on there. You're only going to see the edge. So if you go over, it's better to go over, then that way you know for sure that you've got enough ink on there. It's going to be covered up by your paper. So I'm going to hit the fast forward and get this done. Now, excuse me, on this piece, we're going to be gluing this, so you don't have to ink all inside here, but you do want to ink around the edges that are going to be showing. Okay, I think that's got everything inked. Oops, I forgot this little piece. Well, we're going to be inking the edges of our papers too. I'm just going to go ahead and ink this little piece since it's already cut. Because we're going to want to glue this down first before we do anything else. We don't need to ink that part. You're not going to see that. So, get myself together over here. Okay. Get rid of that mess. All right. So here's our main piece again. The file folder that we didn't cut. Now we're going to put this, the piece that we cut, we're going to put it in here and glue it in before we do anything else. Okay, that looks good. And what I'm going to do to make this easier is I'm going to unfold this. So get your glue. If you're using thin paper, like copy paper, I would recommend probably using a glue stick because a wet glue might cause your paper to wrinkle. But this is, excuse me, this is a nice size, nice thickness of cardstock. So I'm going to go ahead and use my art glitter. I don't have to worry about it. And then line it up how you want it. And glue it down. Where's my bone folder? Oh, okay, there it is. I need to get the big one out. I lose this one too much. Just going to burnish that down, make sure it's on there good. Then fold this back up. See how nice that looks? So now this is how this is going to be. So we're ready to glue the sides on this. Now, also, before you do that, if you want to, there's this little slice right here that you're going to see. I don't usually cover that with paper. You obviously can. If you want to cover that with paper, now's the time to do that. I'm not going to cover it with paper, but I am going to ink it a little bit more, make it look a little bit neater, since you are going to be seeing it. Just try to get some of the little circle marks out because it's not going to be covered up with paper. Yeah. Now see on this, it also has the circle marks and stuff, but you don't see it when you cover it with the paper. All you see is uneven inking, which is perfect. So this, you're going to see this whole piece. I'm not going to cover it. If you want to cover it, now's the time to do it. So, okay, since I'm not covering mine, I'm going to go ahead and glue my sides down on this piece. Now, when you fold this, you see that this piece is shorter than this piece. So I'm going to put the glue on the short piece. That way I don't worry about getting glue where I don't need it up there. So you want to stay as close to the edge as you can, but you also want to get a fairly good amount of glue on there because this is what's going to be, this is the base of your journal. So you want it to be sturdy. Okay. And then just fold it up and burnish it. And when I do this, I kind of burnish and push a little bit in. This pocket is going to be this whole thing. So it's fine if it gets a little bit on there, but I really want the majority of that glue to stay in there and not squish out the side over here. And then I'm going to do the same thing with this side. Now, depending on what glue you use, you may want to let this dry before you continue. So that way you don't have to worry about it accidentally coming open. And after you glue it, you might find that there's a little bit of, I don't know, warping maybe. All you do is just push it out flat and reburnish your seams. And that will take care of that. And it doesn't do that every time. It's just on certain file folders. If they're not exactly perfectly lined up, which you can't help that. They're from the factory that way. They'll get a little, see how it's got a little bit of bulge there? When you're done, after you get your papers and everything in there, you're not even going to notice that. So don't worry too much with it. So we've got the main part done. There's the pocket. And then this is the pocket on the back. Now, if you wanted to, you could put a thumb notch there. But I'm not going to. I don't think it's necessary. I am going to pick this glue off my finger because it's driving me nuts. Okay, so now we basically just do the same thing on each panel. Like this is my front panel. So I want to trace it. That's going to be hard to trace this because you're not going to be able to get it down in there. So basically what I do is I come in it from the side. I always leave extra down here because I can trim that off. That's just going to be a straight line. That's no problem. But up here on these is where you're going to have your tricky part. So I bring it off to the side. First off, I bring it up from the bottom because I want to make sure that it's the width of my paper is correct. So I want to leave a little bit over here for my edge, and I want to allow a little bit over here for that edge. And then I make a mark. But I don't want to cut my B off. So what I'm going to do is measure it from this side, and then I'll cut over here on this piece, on that side of my paper. So I'm not cutting my B. So there. And then make an allowance over here for the mat or the outer edge. Then I'm going to go ahead and trim this to the width that it needs to be, because there's no point measuring and trying to get that tab on here and then find out my paper's too wide. So you want to do the width first. There you go. Much better. That looks good. I leave a little extra at the top, but a good bit at the bottom when I'm doing this. And since I'm not going to be able to trace this, I pull this down and see where this comes down. I just do like that. Okay? And I can use the corner rounder to trim this piece off. So then I'm going to get my scissors. And I know that this is where I want my tab to be. This right here, I do not want to cut that off. But I'm going to turn it upside down because it's easier for me to cut this way. And then I'm just going to follow that little line that I drew for the shape. And then it just goes straight across for the most part. We'll do the little curve on this other end when we get done. So let's see how that looks. And I have to do this 2 or 3 times on these because I never cut it. So it needs to come down some more because I want to be able to move this down so I can have my gap there. So I want to make this longer and a little bit narrower. So I'm going to come in about like this and go down a little bit more and try to cut that in a straight line. But you know me, straight-ish. Okay, so what have we got here? I want to make sure. This is the hardest part of this journal, is doing this. And if anybody thinks up an easier way to do it, please let me know. So you always have to remember, you've got your paper where you want it on your sides. That looks good. It needs to be a little straighter, and it needs to come in some more. So let me just take a little bit more off of this. And I should have been cutting this on the side with the text because I could have used the text as my line is to be straight. I never get them completely straight. I just have to reach a point where I'm like, okay, that's good enough. And I think I've reached it. So when you have it, okay, we got to take care of this little bit over here. I'm just going to eyeball that because I've cut so many of these. Let's see. You know what? That's pretty good. That's pretty good. I'm happy with that. It's not perfect, but I think if I mess with it anymore, I am going to take that little nub of this off. I was going to say if I mess with it anymore, I'm going to mess it up. And I'm probably correct, but you know, a little teeny tiny bit. Okay, that's not perfect, but I think it's going to work. Okay, so when you've got that lined up at the top, the way you want it, and you come down here to your bottom, well, I just let that slip. Hang on. That looks pretty good. That looks, there, that's good. Hold that tight. Come down here and make your mark. Remember to leave a little gap. If you don't leave the gap, you can always come back and recut it. And then I'm just going to trim that off on my line there that I made. Save that. You can use it for something. It's big enough. Okay, that looks good. So I'm going to go ink this and glue it on, and I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back, and it's actually the middle of the night now. Had an issue with some water damage, and I had to have people come and inspect it and give me some estimates, and it's just been crazy. So anyway, I'm back. What I did is here's the page that we already measured and cut out. I went ahead and inked it. I did another one for the back. I'll show you that in a second. And since I'm using 12 by 12s, all my 5 sheets that I picked, all I did was just cut them straight down the middle at 6 inches. So I cut them in half. Okay. So now we need to get all of our panels, our pieces. We've got the main journal section that we put this little scrap back behind there. We've got that big piece. Then we've got this one that flips like this. So we've got that one. And then we've got one that's just a single panel by itself. So we should have 3 pieces here. Now, take the big one, put it on the bottom. The one that flips down, put it there. And then open it up. And the single one, put it inside there. Close it. Now what I did, and I recommend you do this, is I took a pencil and I numbered all my panels and I numbered all my papers. Because as you're doing this, if you're not already confused, it gets even more confusing. You're not going to see these numbers because you're going to put the paper on and it's going to cover it up, right? So I put a number. You might not be able to see it. I can see it. Put a number 1 on this panel, on this paper, and then 1 on this panel. Then I traced it, cut it out, inked it. Then I can set that to the side because I know that's number 1 and this is number 1. Then I open this down and I put number 3 and number 4 because I'm going to show you why. This was all one piece of paper, and I cut it in half and trimmed this one out for number 1. So I want this half to be on the back. So that's why this is number 2, and then I've got a number 2 on here. You can number them any way you want to, as long as you know what's going on. You don't have to have the same numbers as me in the same spot. It's as long as you know what you're doing, that's what's important. So I've got 1, 2, then I fold this down, and the way I do it, I want these 2 to be the same paper. You don't have to do it that way, but that's how I did it. So I've got a 3 and a 4, and I go over here and find my 3 and 4, which I think is down here on the bottom. Let me check. Yep. So I've got a 3 for this panel. So I got the 3 over there. 4 for this panel. And I wrote 4 on the back of that. And then I'm going to open this. And now I want these 2 to match. So I put a 5 here, 6 here. And let's see which papers I chose. I chose this one and I cut it in half. And I wrote a 5 on here and a 6 on here. So that's 5 and 6. Close this back up. And then this is going to open this way. And so I've got 7 and 8, and I want them to match. So let's see, my 7 and 8. There's a 7 and the 8. So I've got those. And then I close this and open it this, and I've got 9 and 10, which is these 2 pieces here. There's 9 and 10. So now when I go to finish measuring and trimming and inking, all I have to do is look for the numbers. So I want to do panel 2. I just go through here and find my page that has number 2 on it. And then I know that I want to put that on there and trace around and measure and cut it and then ink it, put it off to the side. Then we go to the next one. Let's see, let's do number 3. We'll do number 3 together. I'm not going to do every single one of the panels together with you because it's repetitive, and there's once you do 1 or 2, then you get the hang of it and you can do the rest of them. So let's see. Where's my number 3? Here it is. Number 3, number 3. So I'm going to actually just take this out of here, put this out of the way, and just deal with number 3. So, and I had to end up turning my light on because it's the middle of the night. Excuse me. I put this paper down so we wouldn't have to look at all that glare. So let's get our paper up here and see if it's too wide, so I need to trim this. So let me go ahead and grab my pencil and make my mark. I want to leave an allowance for the edge to show. Let's get that on there kind of straight. Okay. And then come over here and decide how much of a border I want, and then I'll just trim this down. Find my mark. It's kind of hard on this dark paper. There. That actually wasn't too painful. Let's see what we've got here. Yep, that looks good. Okay, so now I have to do the top up here. This one's an easy one. I just used the corner rounder. This was just square. And I use the corner rounder on this corner and this corner because, let me get this in here where it goes. Because when it's in here, you're going to open it like this. So you want to have this corner rounded. It just makes it easier to grab. And also I think it looks nicer. And then up here I rounded this corner because I've got this one, and you can round this one too if you want. You can make your tabs look any way you want. Your corners, you can round all the corners. You can not round the corners, but I rounded that one. So okay, let's put this back out of the way. So I rounded these two corners on this one that's just by itself. So really all I have to do is round this corner and then cut out my little notch for that corner. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So I've got that rounded. Line it up to where I want it. And I just have to take the littlest tiny bit off of this corner. I think I'm just going to use the smallest corner rounder I have, and I might not even have to use my scissors on this. Let's see. Scoot this over a little bit. Get it straighter so I can see if I need to. Yeah, I need to go ahead and just cut that off a little bit. Grab my scissors. See what we've got now. Yeah, I could have made it a little better, but that's fine. So, going to mark my length now. Right there, looks good to me. And cut that off. If I can find my mark. There it is. These are the perfect size for pockets, and that's what I'm going to do with these scraps. Because I've got 2 or 3 of them, so I'm going to use them in here to make some pockets. And then we just ink around this. I'll just do that real quick. I could have cut that better. I'm pretty sure it's hot everywhere. So what happened with my water damage is I was running the air conditioner like a mad person. I mean, I'm in South Carolina, so we do that all the time anyway, but it's just been crazy. And I didn't know it, but the little hose for my the condensation, the water that builds up and it runs outside, it got blocked, and so the water backed up and was just going on the subfloor in my house. So yeah, that was bad. But you know, I have good insurance, so we're getting it taken care of. It's just a mess and a nightmare. You know how it goes. And if you don't, I hope you never do. But anyway, so we've got this trimmed, cut, inked. Number 3. Number 3. I think I cut my number off of here. So let me just go ahead and write a 3 on there. That way I know. Okay, set this to the side. And you just continue doing your panels that way until you've got all the paper cut out for your panels. Don't glue them on yet. So you get all your paper cut out. Okay, it's off to the side. I'm going to do the rest of mine off camera. Now we need to build this again. So we've got the big one that we glued the side shut. That goes on the bottom. Then the one that flips down, that goes on top of that. And then you flip this top piece back, and this one that's by itself goes inside here. Okay. Excuse me. So now we need our hinges. So I'm going to keep opening and closing and flipping and flipping. You might have to rewind and watch this, but I'm doing it so many times because it's confusing. So this is your front. You flip this down toward yourself. Then this piece, you're going to want it to open this way. So you take one hinge and you want the hinge to go right here and attach to this piece and attach to this piece. So that way, when you open it, it opens this way. After I get it glued on, oh my goodness, after I get this glued on here, you should be able to see it better. Now this hinge is too long, which is fine. We're going to trim it down. So I'm going to take this piece because it's shorter and use that to measure how long I need my hinge to be. It doesn't have to be the exact length, but you don't want it longer. So grab my pencil and I'm just going to do it about right there. That's fine. It doesn't matter. Like I say, it doesn't have to be the entire length. Cut this off. Okay. Then just make sure that I've got that so it's not too long. Plenty of room. Now what I do is on my hinges, I'll cut an angle on the ends. So that way there's no danger of seeing the hinge after we put the paper on. So we've got our hinge here like this, right? Okay. Now, before you glue it, double check it. So we don't want you, goodbye. So we want the page to open this way. So we put our hinge so it opens the same way. And we put it in there. So I'm going to take this, get my glue, and I'm going to put the glue on the hinge. You want to get a good amount of glue. You don't want to skimp. Okay. Because this is what's going to be holding your journal together. And we want it to open. We want it to open this way. So we want the hinge to open the same way. So line it up with the bottom and this edge. I'm going to move this a little bit. Line it up with the bottom and this edge. So this edge goes with this edge. It doesn't have to be completely on the bottom. And I would actually suggest bringing it up a little bit from that fold, just so you're sure, and get it lined up with your edge here. And take your bone folder. I got my big one out. Oh, goodness. And fold that down. Make sure that you've got it pressed on there really well and that your hinge moves. Then you take your number 3. Make sure you've got it the right way, the rounded corners down here. And you line it up with the bottom. Do not go over the fold. You're not going to, if you do, you won't be able to fold your piece up. And we're going to glue this to the other side of the hinge. So I'm going to put my glue on the hinge. Okay. Got the rounded corner down here on the left. So that's how we know where we want our page. And line it up with the bottom and the edge over here. But do not go over the fold down here at the bottom. Let's see. I think that's actually pretty good. Just lining it up. You give it a good burnish. Open it and burnish the other side. Make sure you get the ends burnished down really good and glued nicely. And we've got our first hinge. Now, depending on what kind of glue you use, you might want to let this dry. Just close it back up, fold our flip up, put this on top of the main part of our journal. So we've got one, and now we've got this that opens. And then when we put our paper on here, it's going to cover this hinge, and all you're going to see is the seam. So that's why I said don't ink. Like if I had put ink here, it would show, and I don't want it to show. So only ink the seams on your hinges. Okay, so we've got, that's our first hinge. Close this back up, and we want it to open this way because the main journal part opens that way. We want this one to go the opposite way. So we need another hinge. Remember, we made 3 because that's what we had. And I already know it's going to be too long. It's no problem. So we want this to open this way. So we want our hinge to also open that way. And let's see, this is the shorter piece because we don't want the hinge to go up past here. So I'm going to use this as my guide to measure how long I want my hinge to be. So I'm going to say probably about right to there. Then I'm going to go ahead and cut that. And I'm going to cut my angles. Get rid of those. Okay, now put this back on top. We want it to open this way. So we want our hinge going the same way. And we're going to start on this short piece with gluing it. The hinge opens that way, and so is the page is going to open that way. So we want to put the glue on this part of our hinge. It doesn't really matter, I suppose, which side you glued the hinge onto first, but I like to do it. I'm going to do it here. And again, line it up with this edge and sort of midway between your top and bottom. But remember, this is the top, not this. This, because we want this to be hidden. So we got that matched up pretty good there. Get the bone folder and burnish it down really good. Make sure that if you have any glue seepage, that you're not gluing this shut. If you're not sure that you can do it without, then just stick a book page or something in there while you're doing this. And then open your hinge up and burnish this side as well, because that's actually the part that has the glue on it. Okay, now I'm going to leave this paper here just in case. So this is the front, because this has got the flip down, and then this opens like this. Close it, and then we want this whole thing to open like that. So we want to glue the hinge right here. So I'm going to put glue on my hinge. And then I'm going to line this up with this edge and the bottom. Stand it up like this. Push it down. Make sure I've got it on the bottom good. And like this as well, so I've got it matched up. Okay. And then burnish. I'm going to do it this way too. And then make sure that none of this is stuck together in case any glue seeped out. So we've got one. Then this opens. Then we open this whole thing and give it a little extra burnish. And we're done with the hinges. So we only needed 2 hinges. And then here's the main part of our journal. And there's the back. So we've got the front. Let me get rid of this. Flip down, open up, close, flip up, open, close, open. And then we've got this big pocket back here on the back. So now all we have to do is finish trimming out our pages and glue them onto the panels. So let's see, I've got a couple done that we did together. So let me get those out. And this is where your numbers really come in handy on your panels and the backs of your pages. So let's see, let's do number 1. And this is number 1, so I'm going to glue this on here. I'm going to use my art glitter glue because, like I said, this is pretty heavyweight cardstock, so I don't have to worry about the paper warping. Wow, I'm sorry about that. So I don't have to worry about the paper warping. If I was concerned, I would use a glue stick, but I've already been working with this paper, and I know that it's not going to warp on me. So I'm going to go ahead and use my art glitter. On a couple of the other ones that I made, I was using my ATG. This bad boy right here. But not everybody has this. You can use the little tape runners. You can use whatever your favorite adhesive is. All right. So let's get this. Now I have to turn this sideways so I can see it to line it up. Okay. Make sure that's pushed on there good. And if you're like me and it doesn't go on exactly straight, that's where ink is our best friend. Because you can just come back and ink over that, which you might want to do anyway. And it sort of blends it all in. And you don't really notice it as much. And then once we get our embellishments and everything on there, it's going to be even better. So that was flap 1. Let's see, which other flap did I do? I did number 2, which is the very back. So let me just do a dry fit. And yep, it's worked good. So I'm going to go ahead, and I already inked it. So I'm going to go ahead and glue this on here too. You see, there's my number 2, and there's my number 2. Okay. And yeah, don't do like I did and glue it to the inside of your journal. All right, I'll have to watch that, make sure, get that dry. Okay. Put this on here. What I do when I have glue on here, I start at the top, because if it's going to be uneven, you want it to be uneven at the bottom, because that's not the first place your eye goes to, is the bottom. So I just put the top up here and get it lined up the way I want it, since there's glue on the entire piece. And then I put it down. Put the rest of it down. Okay. Get that finished on there. And I cut this one a little short down here. You could always put some lace or ribbon down there. I think it's actually fine. I'm not going to worry about it. But if you were to get it like massively short, that's one way to cover it up. Another way to cover it up is to put a pocket and just put the pocket down there. Nobody will ever know. Not even me. But you'll know if I do it on mine. Okay, so, and then I've got one more pantyhose that I did. That's number 3. So let's find number 3. Number 3 is right here. So once you get your panels cutting the paper for these is the hardest part, in my opinion. Then you just stick with your number system and you're good to go. So I'm going to glue this off camera. I'm going to trim out the rest of my pages and then get them inked and then glued on there, and I'll come back and show you what we're ended up with after I get it all done. Be right back. Okay, I'm back. And I got all my all my papers put on my panels. So let's take a look. Flip this one down. And I've got these. And then this opens. Put my roses on there. And this opens. And then you close this and open this. And I've got this. And then this is the back. This is the back. Now, I had made these stack tags a while ago. I think I did a tutorial on them. And I just had them here. So what I thought I would do is I'd take the big one and stick it in the pocket back here. I don't know if I'm going to leave it this way or not. And then I'm going to get some ribbon and tie around the ring. And then on the inside, I have this stack tag. I thought the colors went pretty good. So I'm just going to put the big one in the back and let the other ones hang over the front. And then I'll get some different ephemera to, clip in here like I did on the other one. Let me see, where is it? Well, I'll just use some of the ephemera from the other one since I've got it right here. Now, I didn't put any pockets on this one yet. Let's hold off on the ephemera for a second. I didn't put any pockets on here, but here are my scraps that I had since I used 12 by 12. Most of these scraps are big enough to make pockets. And I've got these two. I don't know if I made a mistake cutting these or if this is just what was left. Anyway, they're scraps, and I thought those would look cute as a little pocket with a little tab on there. You could cut this down or not. So I would probably, I don't know, the roses look good on there. Anyway, yep, you just glue the two sides and the bottom and lay them on there and match them up with your paper that's already on there. Since there's scraps from this paper, they should just about be all right for the width. So basically, you should just maybe, you could put a thumb notch in there if you wanted to. Since all these papers go together, I mean, really any of them would work on either thing. So let's see. Oh, now this is ephemera that I took out of my other journal because I haven't made any for this yet. But this looks good here. This green. So I could put that there. What else have I got? Dun, dun, dun. Does that work? I don't know if it works, but it's just an example of how you could do this. By clipping, use these pretty papers, then you can just make ephemera like this envelope. That just does not go there at all. There, that kind of works. That actually looks really good there. It's got the roses there. I might have to make some new ephemera for the other journal. And then I would clip something here as well. Close this, close this. open this up. Now here is where I would sew in a signature. I don't have that ready, but I would sew my signature in here. 5 or 6 pages. I wouldn't do 2 more than maybe like 8, because there's not really much of a spine. It's just the seam, so you can't make it too thick. Then I've got the tags here on that one, but it still shows all the pretty paper. And then over here, yeah, I don't think this layered tag is going to work in the back. I'll have to make another big tag, or maybe a big journal card to put back here. And then here would be the other signature. You would sew it in right here. And this, I think, would look good right here. You could clip it on here. Or you could, let's see, make a little pocket and stick it in the pocket. Or I've got this other one that you could put in the pocket and have it come down like I did. And you could put a tuck spot over here, put this in there. There's all different kinds of things you can do. But anyway, there's the tutorial on this journal. Flip down, open, close, flip up, open, close, open. And there's the back. So I hope you could follow along. If you have any questions, please just put them in the comments and I will answer, because I do respond to every comment. Hope you enjoyed the tutorial, and stay tuned for the next one. If you haven't subscribed, please do, so that way you'll know when I come out with the next video. For the people that have already subscribed to me, I greatly appreciate it. I'm on Facebook, and I'm in a lot of different junk journal groups, and I was posting in most of the groups that would allow it. I would post my tutorials to let people know that they were on my YouTube channel, but I'm not doing that anymore because it's just too much. So if you've come here from Facebook, please subscribe so you can be notified of all my new tutorials, because I really try to do at least 1, if not 2 a week, unless life happens. So however you got here, wherever you're from, I appreciate you being here, and I hope to see you next time. Bye-bye. Thanks for watching.